The crystalline ships of the Araxian Empire cast prismatic shadows across Earth's oceans as they descended through the atmosphere. Their vessels resembled cut diamonds, each facet gleaming with internal energy that defied human understanding. Massive yet graceful, they hung above every major city on the planet, a display of power that needed no explanation. Dr. Sarah Chen stood at the window of the United Earth Defense Command, her hands clasped behind her back as she watched the largest of the ships positioning itself over Singapore. The vessel's surface rippled with colors that shouldn't exist in nature, a testament to the Araxians' mastery over light and energy. 20 years of her life dedicated to advancing human spaceflight technology, and now she felt like a child watching adults play with toys she couldn't comprehend. Magnificent, aren't they? The voice belonged to first speaker Engsifal, the Araxian ambassador who had arrived 3 days ago. He moved with liquid grace, his iridescent scales shifting colors in harmony with his emotional state. Currently, they displayed a smug azure that made Sarah's jaw clench. "We've been observing your civilization for some time now. Your attempts at space travel are quaint." Sarah turned to face him, keeping her expression neutral despite the condescension in his tone. "We're proud of what we've accomplished, first speaker. Our ships may not be as advanced as yours, but they've served us well." Engstal's scales rippled with amusement, shifting to a patronizing purple. "Ah yes, your titanium-hulled vessels with their chemical propulsion. Like watching children play with wooden boats in a bathtub." He gestured to the window. "Our smallest scout ships possess more computing power than your entire planet's combined networks. The energy output of a single engine crystal could power all of Earth for a century." Behind them, Admiral Marcus Hayes shifted in his seat at the conference table. The old veteran had survived 3 wars on Earth, and Sarah could see him fighting to maintain his diplomatic composure. Then perhaps, Hayes suggested carefully, "You'd be willing to share some of that technology with us, as a gesture of peaceful contact between our civilizations." The Araxian scales flashed crimson for a moment before settling into a deep royal purple. "Share? With a species that hasn't even mastered basic quantum mechanics." He made a sound like tinkling crystal. "Their version of laughter. No, I'm afraid that would be irresponsible. We have protocols for dealing with developing civilizations." Sarah felt her nails digging into her palms. Protocols. Indeed. Engsthal produced a small crystal that projected a holographic document into the air. "The Araxian Empire offers Earth Protectorate status. We will guide your development, ensure no other spacefaring races interfere with your growth, and gradually introduce you to appropriate technologies as you prove yourselves capable of handling them." Admiral Hayes leaned forward. "And if we decline, then you will be isolated. No trade, no cultural exchange, no assistance. The Empire controls all major transit lanes in this sector of the galaxy. Your system will be marked as a restricted zone until you either accept our protection or achieve a sufficient level of advancement on your own, which our analysts estimate would take approximately 3,000 years." Sarah watched the Admiral's face remain impassive, but she knew him well enough to spot the slight twitch of the corner of his mouth. They had both been briefed on what would happen today, had planned for this moment. Everything was proceeding exactly as intelligence had predicted. "This is a generous offer," Engsful continued, his scales now shimmering with what appeared to be genuine benevolence. "Your ships, while admirably constructed given your limitations, would not survive an encounter with even the smallest of hostile species. The universe is vast and often unkind to emerging civilizations. We offer shelter and guidance." Sarah stepped closer to the window, studying the crystalline ship above Singapore. "May I ask a question, first speaker?" "Of course, Dr. Chen. Your curiosity is commendable, even if your understanding is limited. Your ships, they're psionically linked to your crews, aren't they? The crystalline structure acts as both an amplifier and a resonance chamber for your natural telepathic abilities." The Araxian's scales flickered with surprise before he could control the reaction. "How did you?" He composed himself quickly. A lucky guess, perhaps, but ultimately irrelevant. Yes, our technology is integrated with our natural abilities in ways your species couldn't hope to replicate. Sarah smiled slightly. Interesting. And these abilities, they're affected by water, aren't they? Something about the molecular structure interferes with your psionic resonance. Now, Enkstill's scales shifted rapidly through several colors. You seem very well informed for a primitive species, Dr. Chen. But again, this knowledge serves no practical purpose. You lack both the biological and technological prerequisites to make use of such information. Admiral Hayes cleared his throat. First speaker, we appreciate the Empire's generous offer. Earth's governments will need time to discuss and consider our response. Of course. Enkstall's scales settled back into their default iridescent sheen. You have 14 planetary rotations to make your decision. I trust you will choose wisely. He moved toward the door with that liquid grace, pausing only briefly. Oh, and Dr. Chen, I noticed your orbital shipyards have been rather quiet lately. I do hope your species isn't foolishly attempting to hide military preparations from us. Our sensors can detect any spacecraft larger than a few meters. After the Araxian left, Sarah waited exactly 30 seconds before speaking. He's right about their sensors, you know. They can detect any spacecraft larger than a few meters. She smiled. Good thing we haven't been building in orbit. Hayes stood and walked to the window, watching the crystalline ships glitter in the sunlight. Deep harbor. Proceeding exactly on schedule. The Araxians aren't wrong about everything. Water does interfere with their sensing capabilities. They never thought to look down instead of up. She pulled out her tablet, displaying a classified feed from deep beneath the Pacific Ocean. Would you like to see humanity's real fleet, Admiral? The footage showed vast underwater complexes where sleek, dark ships waited in pressurized chambers. Unlike the bulky vessels in orbit that the Araxians had dismissed, these craft were elegant and deadly, their hulls covered in experimental metamaterials that absorbed both light and energy. Quantum drive cores pulsed with carefully contained power, and weapon systems unlike anything humanity had publicly revealed waited silently for activation. How many? Hayes asked quietly. 317 capital ships, with another 200 nearing completion. The Nightingale finished its shakedown cruise last week. Full quantum stealth capabilities confirmed. We can slip right through their sensor networks without a trace. She paused the footage. We're not primitive, Admiral. We're just very, very good at letting people underestimate us. Hayes nodded slowly. 14 days, they gave us. How long do you need? 8 to bring the full fleet online. Another 2 for final crew integration and systems checks. When the Araxians return for their answer, they're going to learn something their empire seems to have forgotten. And what's that, Doctor? Sarah Chen looked up at the crystalline ships, her smile turning fierce. Never judge a species by its first steps into space. Sometimes the quiet ones are the ones you should fear the most. In the depths of the Pacific, in secret bases hidden from prying eyes, humanity's true fleet waited patiently for the moment to reveal itself. The Araxian Empire had made a critical mistake. They had judged Earth by what they were allowed to see, never considering what might be hidden beneath the waves. In 14 days, they would learn the cost of their arrogance, and the galaxy would discover that humanity's primitive technology was anything but. The shadow of giants had fallen across Earth, but shadows often hide more than they reveal. And in those shadows, humanity had built something that would change the balance of power forever. 3 kilometers beneath the Pacific Ocean, Commander James Rivera walked through the crystalline observation tunnel of Deep Harbor Station Alpha. Above him, the immense bulk of the prototype vessel, Nightingale, hung suspended in its pressurized dock, its dark hull seeming to drink in what little light reached these depths. Unlike the utilitarian designs of Earth's public space fleet, the Nightingale was a predator, sleek, deadly, and completely invisible to conventional sensors. Beautiful, isn't she? Dr. Chen's voice echoed slightly in the tunnel. She stepped up beside him, her tablet displaying real-time diagnostics from the ship. The metamaterial hull is performing even better than we hoped. The Oraxians' quantum scanning array passed right over us yesterday. They didn't detect a thing. Rivera nodded, watching maintenance drones swarm around the vessel's hull like luminescent fish. Hard to believe we kept this secret for 15 years. Project Deep Harbor, the biggest military undertaking in human history, and not a single leak. Fear is a powerful motivator, Sarah replied, her expression darkening. When the first long-range telescopes spotted the Oraxian Empire's expansion pattern, we knew we had maybe 20 years before they reached Earth. Humanity had a choice: unite and prepare in absolute secrecy, or face subjugation. The commander turned to study the scientist's face. You really think they're that dangerous? They talk about protection and guidance, but their ships haven't made any aggressive moves. Sarah's laugh held no humor. The Oraxians don't need to be aggressive. Their protectorate status is economic and cultural annihilation wrapped in a gentle smile. Did you know they've done this to 17 other species? Once a civilization accepts their protection, they're gradually stripped of any technological innovation that might threaten Oraxian dominance. Within 3 generations, most protectorate species forget they ever had dreams of independence. Below them, a massive cargo submarine glided past, carrying components for the next generation of quantum drives. The entire operation was a testament to human ingenuity. Dozens of underwater bases connected by a network of high-speed transport tubes, all hidden from the prying eyes of orbital sensors. "Show me the new stealth system," Rivera requested, and Sarah's tablet projected a holographic diagram into the air between them. We reversed engineered it from studying their sensor technology. The Oraxians use quantum entanglement for faster-than-light communication and detection. Very advanced, nearly impossible to fool, unless you understand the fundamental flaw in their approach. She manipulated the hologram, zooming in on the ship's hull structure. They rely entirely on quantum states that exist in normal spacetime. We developed a way to shift our ships partially out of phase with regular matter. Rivera whistled softly. That's why the hull looks like it's absorbing light. Exactly. The Nightingale doesn't just hide from sensors. It exists slightly out of sync with reality itself. We can slip right through their defense networks without triggering a single alarm. She paused, checking something on her tablet. Speaking of which, your crew is assembled in Bay 94. Ready to make history. The commander straightened his uniform. The first true stealth run against an Oraxian patrol. We've been ready for years. He started walking toward the transport tube that would take him to his crew, then stopped. Dr. Chen, what happens if they detect us? Sarah's expression was grim. Then we launch ahead of schedule. Every ship we have, ready or not. The moment they realize what we've built down here, the Oraxians will either have to destroy us or acknowledge us as equals. There won't be any middle ground. In Bay 94, 30 of the best pilots and officers Earth had produced waited for their commander. They had trained for years in perfect secrecy, mastering technology that officially didn't exist. Each of them knew the stakes. Humanity's future would be decided by how well they performed their mission today. The Nightingale's interior was a stark contrast to the crystalline beauty of Oraxian vessels. Everything was matte black, designed to absorb energy rather than channel it. The bridge crew moved with practiced efficiency, bringing systems online without a word. They had drilled this thousands of times in simulation. Now it was real. All stations report, Rivera ordered as he took his command chair. Engineering ready. Quantum drive nominal. Phase shift generators at standby. Tactical ready. Weapon systems cold but primed. Navigation ready. Course plotted through the Oraxian patrol route. Communications ready. Quantum silence protocols engage. Rivera took a deep breath. Dr. Chen, we are ready to proceed. From her control center, Sarah initiated the launch sequence. The massive doors above the Nightingale opened, releasing a cascade of seawater. The ship's hull began to shimmer slightly as the phase shift generator spooled up, making it look like a heat mirage in the depths. "Remember," Sarah's voice came through the command channel, "you're not just testing a ship. You're proving that humanity can stand among the stars as equals. Show them what we can do." The Nightingale rose silently through the water, its outline becoming increasingly indistinct as the stealth systems engaged fully. By the time it broke the surface, it was virtually invisible to both normal sight and sensors. Above, 3 Oraxian patrol ships moved in their standard search pattern, their crystalline hulls gleaming in the sunlight. "Take us up," Rivera ordered quietly. "Let's go say hello to our friends from the Empire. Just not too loudly yet." The ship ascended into the atmosphere, then into low orbit, passing barely a kilometer from the nearest Oraxian vessel. On their sensors, there would be nothing but empty space. The Empire's greatest advantage, their supposedly unbeatable detection technology, had just been rendered obsolete by human innovation. In her control center, Sarah watched the telemetry with growing satisfaction. The Nightingale's systems were performing perfectly, maintaining its quantum phase shift even under acceleration. In the 8 days before the Oraxians returned for their answer, the rest of the fleet would conduct similar test runs. Each successful mission brought humanity closer to the moment when they would reveal their true strength. The Oraxian Empire had spent centuries becoming complacent in their technological superiority. They had forgotten that necessity breeds innovation, that pressure creates diamonds. Humanity had taken their greatest strengths, their crystalline ships, their quantum sensors, their psionic technology, and found ways to counter them all. Deep beneath the waves, hundreds more ships waited for their moment. When it came, the galaxy would learn an important lesson: never mistake patience for weakness or preparation for primitiveness. The silent fleet would rise from the depths, and with it, humanity's place among the stars would be secured, not as proteges or servants, but as equals who had earned their place through ingenuity and determination. The shadow of giants still loomed over Earth, but soon those giants would learn they weren't nearly as tall as they thought they were. First Speaker Anxthel's scales shifted to a troubled gray as he studied the sensor readings for the 3rd time. Something was wrong. The quantum resonance patterns around Earth had changed subtly over the past few days, showing brief, inexplicable fluctuations that his scientists couldn't explain. "Perhaps it's a natural phenomenon," his second-in-command suggested, though his own scales betrayed his uncertainty with flickers of anxious yellow. The humans' primitive nuclear reactors to create unusual energy signatures. "No." Anxthel's scales darkened. "This is different. These patterns, they almost look like quantum wake traces, but that's impossible. The humans are centuries away from that technology." He turned to face the massive viewing window of his command ship, watching Earth rotate slowly below. "Increase surveillance. I want continuous scanning of all orbital paths and major population centers." Deep beneath the Pacific, Dr. Sarah Chen monitored the increased Oraxian activity with growing concern. Their test flights had been perfect, too perfect, perhaps. The Empire's sensors were more sensitive than their intelligence had indicated. "They're suspicious," Admiral Hayes noted, studying the tactical display. Dozens of new Oraxian ships had arrived in the past 12 hours, their crystalline forms creating a glittering web around Earth. "But they still haven't looked down," Sarah replied, bringing up the status of Deep Harbor's fleet. 300 ships now stood ready, with the remaining vessels completing their final system checks. The Nightingale proved the stealth systems work. "We could launch now if we had to." Hayes shook his head. "Not yet. We need the entire fleet operational. One ship slipping past their sensors is an anomaly. 300 ships appearing simultaneously." He smiled grimly. "That's a statement." Commander Rivera's voice crackled through the quantum-encrypted comm. "Dr. Chen, Admiral, we have a situation. The Oraxians just launched probe drones. They're moving in a search pattern that includes high-altitude ocean scanning." Sarah's hands flew across her control panel, bringing up the drone trajectories. They're still using standard quantum sensors. The water will distort their readings enough to. She stopped mid-sentence, her eyes widening. They're deploying some kind of new scanning technology, the energy signature. It's like nothing we've seen before. How long until they can detect the bases? Hayes demanded. Unknown. But we should assume our stealth advantage just got significantly shorter. She opened a channel to all deep harbor facilities. Initiate Protocol Thunderbird. This is not a drill. Repeat. Protocol Thunderbird is now active. Throughout the underwater bases, klaxons began to sound. Crews rushed to their ships as massive pumps began clearing the launch bays. Project Thunderbird, humanity's ultimate contingency plan, had been designed for exactly this scenario. The Nightingale was the first to respond. Under Rivera's command, the ship rose silently from its dock, its phase-shifted hull rendering it nearly invisible even underwater. "We'll run interference," Rivera reported. "If those drones get too close to the bases, we'll give them something else to think about." Above, the Araxian probe drones continued their methodical search pattern. Their new sensors fired powerful energy pulses into the ocean, building a detailed picture of what lay beneath. They were looking for anomalies, any sign that humanity was more than what they appeared to be. They found their first clue 300 meters down, where a quantum pulse reflected off something that shouldn't have been there. The drone's artificial intelligence noted the anomaly and began a more detailed scan. It never completed its analysis. A shadow passed through its sensor field, there and gone so quickly it registered only as a momentary data corruption. Then the drone simply ceased to exist, its crystalline structure dissolving into its component atoms without a trace. On his flagship, Anxthel's scales flashed alarm red as the drone's signal vanished. What happened? "Show me the final telemetry." His scientists worked frantically, but there was nothing to show. The drone hadn't been destroyed. It had been completely erased, as if it had never existed at all. And in the fraction of a second before its dissolution, its sensors had recorded something impossible. A human ship, more advanced than anything they had believed possible, operating with technology that should have been centuries beyond Earth's capability. "Launch all remaining drones," Anxthel ordered, his scales now pulsing with angry crimson. "I want every cubic meter of those oceans scanned. If the humans have been hiding something from us." Another drone vanished. Then another. Each disappearance was accompanied by that same phantom sensor reading. A ship that couldn't possibly exist, appearing and vanishing like a ghost in the depths. In the Nightingale's command center, Rivera allowed himself a small smile. "Quantum torpedo effectiveness confirmed, Doctor. Your weapon works perfectly. Total molecular dissolution. No debris, no energy signature." Sarah's voice was tight with tension. "How many drones remaining?" 12. But they've altered their search pattern. They're starting to focus on the areas where their drones disappeared. We can't keep this up without revealing our position. Admiral Hayes made the decision. "Initiate Thunderbird Phase 2. All ships, prepare for emergency surface protocol. If they want to see what's down here, let's show them everything at once." Throughout Deep Harbor's bases, massive underwater doors began to open. Ships that had waited years in silence powered up their quantum drives, their hulls shimmering as phase shift generators engage. The ocean itself seemed to come alive with hidden power. In orbit, Anxthel was preparing to order a full military response when his sensor officer's scales turned pure white with shock. First speaker, energy signatures, hundreds of them, rising from the ocean. The surface of Earth's Pacific Ocean began to boil, not with heat, but with the emergence of humanity's true fleet. Ship after ship broke through the waves, their dark hulls drinking in sunlight as they rose toward the stars. They moved with precise coordination, forming battle groups and attack patterns that spoke of years of preparation and training. Sarah Chen's voice echoed through every ship in the fleet. "Remember your training. Remember why we built this fleet. The Araxian Empire thought they could judge our worth by what we showed them. Today, we show them everything we chose to hide. Today, we prove that humanity belongs among the stars not as servants or subjects, but as equals. The silent fleet had finally risen from the depths. The storm that humanity had spent 15 years preparing was about to break, and the galaxy would never be the same. As the fleet took position around Earth, Admiral Hayes sent a single message to the Oraxian command ship. About that protectorate status, let's discuss more equal terms. The space around Earth had become a glittering standoff. Oraxian crystalline ships formed a defensive sphere in high orbit, their faceted surfaces refracting sunlight in dazzling patterns. Below them, humanity's dark fleet held position, hundreds of vessels arranged in perfect combat formation, their phase-shifted hulls creating ripples in the very fabric of space. First Speaker Anxthal Scales had settled into a deeply troubled violet as he faced the human delegation aboard his flagship. Dr. Chen, Admiral Hayes, and Commander Rivera stood before him, their expressions carefully neutral. "This is unprecedented," Anxthal finally said. "No species has ever concealed such advancement from us. The Empire's protocols don't account for this situation." "Your protocols," Sarah replied calmly, "were written with the assumption that technological progress follows a predictable path. That assumption was your first mistake." The Oraxian scales flickered with suppressed anger. "And what was our second mistake, Dr. Chen?" "Believing that humanity would accept a future chosen for us by others." She gestured to a nearby viewport where the dark fleet was visible. "We spent 15 years preparing for this moment. Every ship you see out there represents a different path, one we chose for ourselves." Anxthal moved to a tactical display, studying the sensor readings of the human vessels. "Your ships, they operate on principles we thought impossible for your level of development. The phase-shifting technology alone was reverse-engineered from studying your quantum sensors," Rivera interrupted. "Turns out when you spend enough time watching someone's technology, you start to see its flaws, its limitations, its possibilities." The First Speaker's scales shifted to a deep blue of calculation. "The Empire cannot allow such a dramatic shift in the balance of power. If other protectorate species were to learn of this, they already know." Admiral Hayes smiled thinly. "We've been broadcasting everything since the moment our fleet surfaced. Every protectorate world under your control is watching right now, seeing proof that the Oraxian Empire isn't invincible. That advancement doesn't have to come at the price of submission." Anxthal's scales went pure white with shock. "You wouldn't dare risk." The chamber's lighting suddenly shifted as a massive shadow fell across the Oraxian flagship. Through the viewport, a new ship emerged from its phase shift, larger than anything either fleet had yet revealed. Its hull was a perfect fusion of human ingenuity and reversed-engineered Oraxian technology, representing everything the Empire had feared. A species that could not only match their advancement but surpass it. "The Prometheus," Sarah said quietly, "our first true capital ship. While the Nightingale and its sisters were testing your defenses, we were completing her. She carries enough firepower to match your entire fleet, and you never saw her coming." In the tense silence that followed, Admiral Hayes stepped forward. "You have two choices, First Speaker. Accept humanity as equals and help us usher in a new age of cooperation between species, or," he let the alternative hang unspoken in the air. Anxthal's scales cycled through several colors before settling into a resigned gray. "The Empire has never negotiated with a developing species as equals." "Then perhaps," Sarah suggested, "it's time for the Empire to develop as well." The negotiations that followed would reshape the galaxy's political landscape. The Oraxian Empire, faced with the first real challenge to its technological supremacy in centuries, was forced to confront the limitations of its own worldview. Humanity, having proven its worth through ingenuity rather than submission, offered a new model of advancement, one based on innovation and cooperation rather than dominance and control. Throughout the human fleet, crews maintained their vigilant watch. They had trained for war but hoped for peace, prepared for conflict but aimed for understanding. The dark ships that had hidden beneath Earth's oceans now stood as symbols of a species that had refused to accept the role others had chosen for it. Commander Rivera, back aboard the Nightingale, watched as shuttles began moving between the fleets, diplomats and scientists beginning the long process of building trust between two very different civilizations. "Do you think they'll honor whatever agreement we reach?" he asked Sarah through their quantum link. "They'll honor it because they have no choice," she replied. "We didn't just show them our fleet today. We showed them something far more dangerous. A new way of thinking." Every protectorate species watching this unfold is asking themselves what else they might achieve if they stopped accepting limitations imposed by others. The Prometheus held position above the negotiations, its presence a quiet reminder of humanity's newfound strength. But it represented something more than military power. It was proof that humanity's greatest weapon had always been its ability to innovate, to find solutions where others saw only obstacles. As the day drew to a close, Earth's fleet remained ready, their dark hulls still rippling with phase shift energy. They had emerged from the depths not just as warriors, but as pioneers, breaking free from chains that would have bound humanity's potential. The silent fleet had spoken volumes without firing a shot, proving that sometimes the most powerful statement is simply refusing to accept the future others have planned for you. The galaxy was changing. The age of protectorates and enforced technological hierarchies was ending, and humanity, having hidden its light beneath the waves for so long, was ready to help guide the way towards something new. A future where advancement came through cooperation rather than submission, through innovation rather than imitation. The storm they had prepared for had broken, not in violence, but in understanding. And in its wake, the stars themselves seemed to shine with new possibility. 1 year after humanity's fleet emerged from the depths, Earth's orbital space had transformed. Where once only Araxian crystalline ships patrolled, now a joint defense fleet maintained the peace. Dark-hulled human vessels moved in perfect coordination with their crystalline counterparts, a visible symbol of the new order that was reshaping galactic society. Dr. Sarah Chen stood in the newly constructed Harmony Station, a massive orbital facility that combined both human and Araxian technology. Through its quantum-enhanced viewport, she watched as the Prometheus conducted joint maneuvers with 3 Araxian battlecruisers, their contrasting designs creating an eerily beautiful dance against the stars. "Still hard to believe sometimes," Commander Rivera said, joining her at the window. "A year ago, we were hiding our entire fleet underwater. Now we're teaching the Araxians how to phase shift their crystal matrices. And they're teaching us how to better integrate quantum resonance into our hulls," Sarah added. "Turns out when you stop trying to dominate each other, there's a lot both sides can learn." The station's quantum sensors detected a new arrival. First speaker Anxeval, his scales now permanently tinted with bands of earthen colors, a change that had occurred gradually over months of working closely with humans. The Araxian leadership had been transformed by the experience, forced to confront centuries of assumptions about how civilization should develop. The latest reports from the former protectorate worlds are interesting, Anxeval announced, his scales shifting through patterns that humans had learned to read as complex emotional states. 17 species, all beginning to develop their own unique technological paths. The galaxy is becoming far more complicated than we ever intended. Complicated isn't always bad, Admiral Hayes replied, entering the observation deck. Those species were always capable of this level of innovation. They just needed to see it was possible. The Admiral's words were punctuated by a brilliant flash of light outside the station. The Prometheus had successfully tested its new hybrid dry system, combining human phase shift technology with Araxian quantum crystals. The result was a vessel that could traverse vast distances in ways neither civilization had achieved alone. "The Empire's Council of Elders has reached a decision," Anxeval announced, his scales rippling with what humans now recognized as nervous anticipation. "We are formally dissolving the protectorate system. All species under our protection will be offered full independence and technological partnership opportunities. Sarah smiled. And how many of your fellow Oraxians oppose this decision? Fewer than you might think. This past year has been enlightening for my people. We had become so convinced of our own superiority that we forgot the very qualities that made us advanced in the first place: curiosity, innovation, the willingness to see the universe in new ways. His scales shifted to a warm gold. Humanity reminded us of who we used to be. Outside, more ships were arriving. Representatives from former protectorate worlds coming to participate in the first galactic conference of independent species. Each vessel showed signs of rapid technological advancement, unique combinations of their native ingenuity with both human and Oraxian influences. "We're going to need a bigger station," Rivera observed, watching the growing fleet of diverse ships. "Already under construction," Sarah replied. "The deep harbor facilities have been converted to produce components for joint technology projects. The same bases that hit our fleet are now building the foundation for a new era of cooperation." Admiral Hayes studied a tactical display showing the positions of the gathered ships. Any word from the outer rim worlds? The ones that were considering breaking away from the Empire entirely. Anxthal's scales showed a complex pattern of blue and gold. They've agreed to join the conference. Humanity's example showed them a middle path, neither complete independence nor submission, but partnership. He turned to Sarah. "Though I admit, I still find it remarkable that your species planned so far ahead. The level of coordination, the technological development, the secrecy. We had good motivation," Sarah said quietly. "When we first detected your empire's expansion, we had a choice to make. We could accept the future you had planned for us, or we could create our own. Humanity has a long history of overcoming seemingly impossible odds when properly motivated." The station's quantum alerts chimed softly. The conference was about to begin. Representatives from 23 species would meet as equals for the first time, each bringing their own innovations and perspectives to the table. "A year ago, I would have said this was impossible," Anxthal admitted as they walked toward the conference chamber. "That such rapid change would lead to chaos." "Change always looks impossible until it happens," Rivera replied. "Then it becomes inevitable." The conference chamber was a marvel of joint engineering. Quantum crystalline technology merged seamlessly with human phase shift fields, creating a space where all species could communicate clearly despite their physical and technological differences. As the representatives took their places, Sarah felt a profound sense of accomplishment. The silent fleet that had hidden beneath Earth's oceans had done more than just prove humanity's worth. It had catalyzed a transformation that was still spreading throughout the galaxy. Species that had been relegated to the role of students were becoming teachers in their own right, each contributing unique perspectives to the growing pool of galactic knowledge. As she took her place at the conference table, Sarah caught sight of the Prometheus through the chamber's viewport. The massive ship no longer needed to hide its power. Instead, it had become a symbol of what could be achieved when innovation was driven by hope rather than fear, cooperation rather than dominance. The galaxy was entering a new age, one where advancement wasn't measured by comparison to others, but by the unique contributions each species could make to the whole. Humanity's silent fleet had emerged from the depths not just to defend Earth, but to help forge a future where no species would ever again be judged as primitive simply because they chose a different path to the stars. The shadow of giants no longer fell across Earth. Instead, all species stood together in the light of a new dawn, ready to face whatever challenges the universe might present, not as rulers and subjects, but as equals united by their shared desire to explore, to learn, and to grow. And somewhere beneath Earth's oceans, the deep harbor bases remained, not as hidden fortresses, but as a reminder that the greatest achievements often begin in silence and shadow, waiting for the right moment to emerge into the light.